Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Sunday Night Live with me, Jonny Lipsham, here at Jonny Lipsham Studios for now. Uh, as I said, we are experiencing a severe storm here in Scotland, and we're under a tornado watch, which expires in about an hour or so's time. But it's pretty scary out there just now. We've already lost part of our fence from the back garden, and my son's basketball hoop appears to have flown off somewhere and is probably in somebody else's garden. And our barbecue has also disappeared. I no idea where that's gone. So, yeah, and our bins are distributed around Midlothian somewhere. So I don't know how long we're going to be able to go for, but we're going to try and make it through the hour. We don't have many people here, which is not surprising considering the fact that I kind of forgot to put adverts out for this until about an hour ago. So yeah, that's probably why we've only got like 8 people here, but that's okay. We will do our best to get through the hour as best we can. If you hear any kind of loud roaring sounds and that kind of stuff, that's the wind. That is the sound of the wind. That's pretty how scary it is here at the moment. But we're going to do our best to get through. So if you have questions about Studio One and recording, mixing, mastering in Studio One, then please do get your questions in the chat, and I'll try and get through as many as I can, and hopefully we'll be able to run for the whole hour, and then I'm going to power down pretty much. So hopefully we have power for as long as that, basically. If we make it through the show, I'll be happy. So stay with me, everybody, and please keep me occupied with questions. I would appreciate that a lot. It would help me not think about what's going on behind the camera, which is already pretty scary. So let's see who's here. Mike Johnson, over in the Philippines, was the first one in the door. Thanks to, I think he has a slight advantage because he's like several hours in my future, let alone you guys who are in the United States. He's like almost a day in your future. So he has a wee advantage, but that's okay. And then Sean Aaron, and then Billy Morgan, and then Tony Stringer, and we've got John Hawk here and Boris Dancy who has the first question. We'll get to that in just a minute. And we got Cal Trajuziak here. We got my very good friend Chris Mrackner here as well, and we got Stephen Wilson, who I was talking to on Discord earlier. It was very good to see him there. And then we've got Bobby Muth, and we got Ron Figura, and we got Keith over in Radio Tuck Frumpet Land, which is now, I think, a new state in Canada, or at least it should be. And we got Paul Morgan here as well, and Boris is saying, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore. Yes, indeed. That's kind of what it's like here. See, we do get tornadoes here in the UK, but they don't tend to be anything like as big as tornadoes that you get in the United States, in like the Tornado Alley district of the United States, where your tornadoes can be a mile wide. Ow, shit, Brett, what the hell was that? Sorry, I just heard a very loud bang outside. And I swore. I don't normally do that. But yeah, that freaked me out. So yeah, we don't normally get very many tornadoes here, and they don't tend to be particularly large. I think the largest one recently recorded was a tornado in Manchester in December, which was rated as an EF 2.5, and it was on the ground for about 35 seconds and did pretty much about £6 million worth of damage in 35 seconds. So that's kind of the standard of our tornadoes. I think about 2 years ago, I saw a tornado just up the road from here, actually, in the summertime 2 summers ago. It was not far away at all. That was on the ground for about 2 minutes. But fortunately, it was nowhere near any housing or any built-up areas. It was in out in some farmland, and it destroyed a few barns. But that's about all it did. But yeah, so we do get tornadoes, just not very many, and they're not very big, and they don't tend to be on the ground for very long. So if you're tornado chasing, you know it here in the UK, it's much harder than it is in the United States. You have a better chance of catching one in the United States than you do here. So that's the story with that. So yes, I have already been outside and had to go and rescue bins and items from our garden that had gone flying out into the street out front there. So I have already been out in the storm and have been attacked by a flying bin. Took a flying bin to the back of the head. That was fun. I don't think it knocked any sense into me at all, but, you know, I don't know what it would take to knock any sense into me, to be honest. But, alright, let's get to Boris's question. If I can just scroll up and find it. He says, I saw an update, but no release notes. What was included in this update? Yes, we did put out an update just recently for Studio One 6.5.2. And I'm going to show you where you can access the release notes for Studio One. So let's go over and do that. So the best place to do it is here. You go to Help and View Release Notes. And then what it does, it downloads them and it opens them up as a PDF document like this. And I'm going to close this little side panel, make it easier for you guys to read it. And so, and I'll also zoom in just a smidge. There we go. So here we go. 6.5.2 released January 16th, 2024. So that was just last week. Not much added, as you can see. Integration for SynchroArt's Revoice Pro 5. So that's for ARA integration. So that is now available. So if you have Revoice Pro 5, then yes, you'll be able to use it in ARA. Just like you would for Melodyne, you can use Revoice Pro in that same way. Excuse me. And we've got a couple of fixes here. So certain AU plugins do not process audio. Yep. That was a bit of a big issue. Crashes when instantiating with certain AU plugins, and then AU v3 are automatically filtered and will not appear in the plugin list. So if you have AU version 3 plugins on your Mac, they are not supported and they are now filtered so that they will not appear in the plugin list. The reason being is because basically you will not be able to even start Studio One. It will crash on start. Because the AU v3s are not supported, they are not coded for Studio One, so we basically had a situation where we just had to filter them. So if you had AU v3s, you will not see them in the plugin list at all, and AU v3 are disabled. And at least now, if you're having crashes with AU v3 plugins, you won't have those crashes because they won't appear. You'll need to use the VST3 version of those plugins if you want to use them. So I recommend, if you have had AU v3 plugins and you have had that problem in Studio One, go to the manufacturer, download the VST3 version and use that instead. Because the AU v3 is a very, very new format and is not supported in Studio One for now. Who knows when it will be, but for right now, it isn't. So finally, the Personas channel strip collection. This is for the RC500 and VT1 modules, not for the ones that you get inside of the FAT channel. These are separate plugins. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I will show you what I'm talking about. Let me close this. If I scroll down here, if I go down to the Personas plugins, there is the VT1 VT1 is a very nice channel strip, and it's modeled after the there's a hardware PreSonus hardware channel strip unit, and this is modeled off of that. And then we also have, if I scroll up here, we have the RC500, which is also modeled after the same unit, which is I think it's the ADL 500, which we've renamed the RC 500, and it's another channel strip. I can show you both of these. So if I just drag this in here, this is the RC 500, and it has EQ and compression, and it has a pretty simple compressor with threshold, attack and release, and you've got a preamp setting there, and then you've got a 3-band EQ. And I'm going to remove that now. Let's go down to the VT1. If you've never seen this before, it's worth checking out. This is a little bit, it's got a little bit more in the way of functionality. You've got a 4-band EQ. You've got an input stage for high-pass filtering and trim and gain and impedance controls. And then you've also got a compressor here with variable ratio, threshold, and attack and release, and then an overall level knob here. And this is also based off of a hardware channel strip that was available, I think, probably about 10 or 15 years ago, which is no longer available. Joe Gilder has one of these hardware units, and he tells me that they are absolutely lovely channel strips. But yeah. So the issue there was the ballistics were slow, and the ballistics basically means this guy, the VU meter, was slow responding to the audio. So let's go and remove that as well, because we don't need that. So there you go. That is it for the 6.5.2 release. It's just basically to fix, it's a hot fix basically to fix the issue with the AU plugins, particularly AU v3. And whilst we're at it, we just thought, you know what, why don't we just put in this integration for Revoice Pro as well. So that's basically the only addition is the Revoice Pro. Everything else is just a very small select number of fixes. And so that's that. Let's see, do we have anything else? That might be the only question by the look of it. And Rich Cresswell is here. Awesome. Talking to him earlier as well. Bobby Booth says the VT1 is great and he uses it a lot. Yeah, it really is. The channel strip plugins are really, really good. Now, you do get them in the fat channel as well. Which is, you know, this is typical of us at PreSonus. We provide multiple options for getting things. So if you go in the compressor section here, you can get these as a free, you won't see them natively in the fat channel. You can get these as a free bundle called the PreSonus Fat Channel Bundle. And you get them from shop.thepresonus.com, and they are free. You just purchase them for $0, and they're yours. And you will find that there's a compressor module for the VT1 and the RC500. And then if you go to the EQ section, there you'll see the RC500 EQ, and the VT1 is just a little bit below that. So 3-band EQ, 4-band EQ, and these work in the fat channel, and they are very, very cool. But like I said, this is a free little bundle that you can get from shop.presonus.com for the fat channel, and it's called the PreSonus Bundle. So if you can purchase the fat channel collection from the shop as well. I don't remember how much it is, but you can certainly buy it from the shop as well. So if you would rather have the actual plugins rather than the modules for the fat channel, you can have those instead. Now, the thing to bear in mind, and the reason why they are different, why it's the fat channel modules are free and the channel strip collection ones aren't, is because although they are the same, they are different. They are scaled down a little bit for the fat channel, because the fat channel, of course, as everybody should know, was designed for the Studio Live mixers, the Studio Live Series 3 mixers. So they are primarily designed to run on the memory of the Series 3 consoles, and that memory is not very big, so everything gets trimmed down a lot for those. So these modules that are in the fat channel here are skimmed down a wee bit in the modeling, okay? Whereas the actual fat channel collection, the actual VT1 and RC500, the channel strip collection, I should say, these ones aren't. These ones are what you call full fat. They have everything. They have all of the modeling of all of the circuits and all of the possible variations of circuits for both those units. Whereas, as I say, the fat channel modules are scaled down from the full things. But that's the difference, and they are very, very cool. They are very, very handy little plugins if you want to basically have a channel strip and do mixing using simulations of hardware channel strips. Like, for example, people use the SSL channel strip plugins either from SSL themselves or the Waves ones. They are very, very cool. The Wave ones are pretty good, but the ones made by SSL themselves are fantastic. They sound pretty much exactly like the actual consoles, no question about it. So if you're looking for channel strip plugins because you want to start getting into using channel strips from consoles, then yes, the SSL channel strip collection from SSL are really, really good. So you can combine those with the VT1 and the RC500. You get different colors, different tones, different flavors, and they're all pretty cool. Well worth checking out. And yeah, they're pretty transparent, but they do have a sound to them. They definitely do have a sound. I forget who they were designed by, which is why the ADL is the guy's initials, and I can't remember his name, unfortunately. But they are really, really good hardware units. As I said, discontinued, no longer really available. But you might be able to pick them up on eBay. Once in a while, you might find an ADL 500 or an ADL 600 on eBay, which is what the VT1 and RC500 are modeled after. And they are great devices. Bobby Booth says Waves are better on CPU. Yes, if you don't mind the Waves update plan. But they're better on the CPU because they are not as feature rich in terms of the modeling than the SSL ones. The SSL ones are based on their actual console in their studio. I'm not saying that the Waves ones aren't based on SSL consoles. Of course they are, but the SSL ones are made by SSL are great because they are modeled after their own schematics. Whereas the ones made by Waves, although they are authorized by SSL, they are not modeled on the same things. They are derivative modeling, I think is what they call it. But they are pretty cool. Doris says, Boris, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Boris. I saw Boris dancing and I spinnerized your name. I've been spinnerizing all day because there is a reason why I did this, by the way, and it's not an excuse, okay? There is a website where you can spoonerize things, and I've been taking sentences and spoonerizing them all day, and I guess I just spoonerized your name by mistake. I apologize. Boris says, Preamp plugins, best practice usage during tracking or as an insert. You can do either. If you want to record through the preamp, then yes, tracking through them is a good way to do that. Now, how do you do that if they are software plugins? I get this question relatively frequently, and I can show you this. Because in this little panel on the side here, there is this little button here that says Show Inputs. So if we click on this, this opens the input section, and you can see the inputs that I have made available in this particular template. And you can see me talking to you here, and you can see I have a limiter. So if I was to hit record on a vocal channel, I would be recording through this limiter. So you can put one of those channel strips on the input stage here. And then when you hit record, you'll be recording through that as if you were recording through the hardware before it goes to your interface. So in this case, the signal flow would be your mic, your interface, then the input stage here, and then it would get printed to the track. So the same thing if you want to print a guitar sound. You can put Ampere on it on a channel, and then you can record that, and you can print that straight to the track, and then when you're done, you just remove it, and it's done. Your guitar tone is there, and no plugins required on the inserts in the channels here. So this is really useful. There you go, Anthony De Maria. Okay. Yes, I couldn't remember who it was. So thanks for that, Kyle. So yes, so you can track through preamps and things like that if you want to on the input stage here. If you don't have the hardware units, then use the plugins and put them on the input stage here. Let's close that. It's a very cool way to work, actually. Like I said, I have a limiter on this because I'm using this for YouTube and for broadcasts, so that's why I have the limiter on there, to catch my overs and also to get my gain up to a decent volume that you guys can hear. And it's nice and clear as well. So yeah, that's what I do for the show. Let's see. Bobby Booth says, I prefer the SSL 4000E from Plugin Alliance. That is a really good model as well, and theirs is also authorized by SSL. Basically, Waves and Plugin Alliance, both I guess must have approached SSL and said, hey, can we do this? Can we kind of have models of these fantastic consoles and, you know, have them authorized by you? And they said obviously yes. And so yeah, so you've got two competing third-party companies, and then you've got SSL that are actually making their own versions of their own consoles, which is great. So I think Plugin Alliance do the E, the G, and the J as far as I'm aware. Plugin Alliance, that is Plugin Alliance, and Waves I think do an E and a G. I don't know whether they do the J series. And SSL, I think, do plugins for most of their consoles, I think, as far as I'm aware. Boris says, I've been experimenting with the 1073 from Universal Audio. Yes, if you actually have a hardware unit, if you actually have the 1073 preamp, those things sound gorgeous. They really do, and they sound great for recording through. So if you actually have a hardware preamp like the 1073, worth its weight in gold to get a really gorgeous, crisp, warm tone. They are great. But well, if you have the plug-in version but not the hardware, then again you can use the inputs section of the mixer and put them there, and you will be recording through them directly to the track. So there you go with that. Kyle says the 9000J, which has an E option built in. Yes, it does. Yeah, they're very cool. The E version of the SSL EQ is supposed to be very musical. It really is. Now, I actually started learning how to mix on an SSL E4000 console, the 4000E console, I should say. That's what I started learning how to mix on. So I have experienced that the EQs on each of the channel strips firsthand. And yes, they are very, very musical, but you can get away with a lot on those. Like you can make really big boosts and really big cuts, and it doesn't sound bad at all. It's like you can do any kind of EQing on those channel strips, and quite honestly, you can't really get a bad tone out of anything. And a really nice compressor as well. So yeah, that's the SSLE. That's what I learned on, and of course no flying faders like on my mixer, which is right in front of me here, which is the Studio Live Series 3 32. Is it 32 SC? Yeah, 32 SC. That's what I've got. Which has flying faders, 16 of those, plus the fat channel section. And this is actually great for mixing through as well. Sometimes I do that. If I want to go back to like how it was when I was mixing on an SSL or a Neve console, I can do that directly on this, and I can just mix through the console and back into Studio One, using Studio One like a tape machine, basically. It's a good, fun way to work. Brainworks also has an SSL. Yes, pretty much everybody, it seems, is making SSL plugins or SSL models. Billy Morgan says he learned to mix on a PV. Right, which would be, I think those are for broadcast, I think, aren't they? They are broadcast consoles, if I remember correctly. Let's see. Kyle says pushing the input gain into the compressor is so nice. Yeah, you can really get away with a lot with the SSL compressors as well. Peter Brooks is here. Hello, Peter. Good to see you. He says, big storm here. Yes, big storm here too. We are, I said at the top of the show, Peter, you were not here, so you probably missed it. We are under tornado watch here. And we have winds gusting up to 90 miles an hour, which is pretty scary, to say the least. I've already been outside into the garden to try and rescue various items of furniture and stuff that's in the garden, and I have already been attacked by flying wheelie bins, which was not great fun. I got spanked on the back of the head by a flying wheelie bin. So not much fun. But I'm okay. I have survived, and I don't think the wheelie bin actually knocked any sense into me, because I don't feel like anything has changed, except for the fact that the back of my head is a bit sore. But other than that, I'm okay. I survived. And just a little while before I started the show, both me and my wife, both of us ended up having to go out to go and rescue items that had come out of our garden, over the house, and into the street out the front. So we needed to go rescue those items before they become a danger to anybody else. So we had to go out and do that. So that was entertaining. It is extremely windy out there. It is raining. It is not as bad as it was, but about 2 hours before showtime, it was like the house was going through a car wash. The rain was that intense, and the wind to go with it as well. So the rain was like driving practically horizontal. It was that wet. Chris Maracan says my wife is mad at me, so it's pretty stormy. Just so long as that doesn't develop into a tornado, you're probably all right there, Chris. I'll be honest. Secret Squirrel says, good evening. Good evening to you, Secret Squirrel. I'm glad you're here. So far, our power has held up. We're still going. To be honest, I didn't think we'd make it to like halfway through, but we are halfway through the show. So if anybody still has Studio One questions, recording, mixing, mastering questions in Studio One, or you've got a particular problem in Studio One that you want to talk about, then please get that in the chat, and I will do my best to work through that with you. Kyle says, gusts up to 68 miles per hour near you. Yes, that is currently correct, but about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, it was gusts up to 90. So the wind has backed off a little bit because the storm is kind of moving a little bit away from us now towards the northeast. And hopefully it will eventually end up out into the North Sea and it will blow itself out. That's kind of what I'm hoping will happen. But yeah, we're under tornado watch until 0100, so we've got about half an hour before that expires. And as far as I know, we haven't had anything happening. We don't have tornado sirens like you have in, Tornado Alley in the United States, because you guys have tornadoes pretty regularly in that part of the United States. Regularly enough that you have a warning system and you have sirens and you have basements. We don't have those here because tornadoes are infrequent and they're not very big. Like, I had some friends come over from the United States, from Texas, and I told them about tornadoes that we have here, and they were just like, "Oh, great! Let's go and see. Let's go see if we can see one." And so they came over here, and let's just say they were less than impressed with our tornadoes. They were just like, "You call that a tornado? That's not a tornado. That's just like a very strong vortex." I was like, "Oh, okay." Yeah, we call those tornadoes here. Just back in December, there was a tornado in Manchester. It was on the ground for 36 seconds and did £6 million worth of damage in 36 seconds. It destroyed 4 houses and a bunch of cars and ripped up a bunch of trees. Yeah, that's the extent of our tornadoes. Whereas over in the United States, tornadoes can do a lot of damage. They can flatten an entire city in a matter of a few minutes. So yeah, what we have is a little bit pathetic by comparison. Let's see. Chris says, is it fair to ask people to listen to your music with headphones because it sounds so much better? You can, I guess. See, there are some very, very good headphones that are great for just listening to music with. I have a set of those, and that's these ones here. These are the PreSonus HD9s. These are fantastic. These are great for recording with because they are closed back, and these completely cover your ears. So they are fantastic for recording with, and as you can see, mine are a little bit old and a little bit knackered. These are starting to come away a wee bit. Those are great for recording with and also just for listening to music with. Actually, I have just like connected them to various devices. Back in the day when a cell phone had a headphone jack, which a lot of them don't anymore because they have wireless earbuds, I used to connect my HD9s to my phone and listen to music that way, and they were really good for that. For mixing, you can't go too terribly far wrong with these. Whoops. These are the HD7s, PreSonus again, but these are semi-open back. As you can see, they've kind of got these little circly things on them. And those are pretty cool. Oops. Hang on just a second. All my cables are getting kind of tangled up with each other. So yeah, the HD7s are great for mixing. They are pretty neutral sounding, pretty flat sounding. The HD9s have a bit of a bass boost, but that's really because they're not designed for mixing. They're designed for recording, and they're designed for just general listening. So they work pretty well as well. But yeah, you can certainly listen to music on headphones, especially if if the speakers you've got in your house are a bit on the shite side. Then yes, headphones is going to be better. That said, though, when you are doing your mixing, it is always good to do what I call a quality control check of your mix on a pair of the shittest speakers you can find. So for that reason, I do have a set of small little crappy Logitech computer speakers, and I can just plug them in and I can listen to my mix on those. And if they sound good on those, they will sound good on any speakers. So I don't want to mix on those, but I do want to reference on those. Why don't I want to mix on those if the idea is to get a good a mix to sound great on shite speakers so that they sound great on any speakers? You don't want to mix on shite speakers because you're not going to hear all of the frequencies with clarity. So when you're mixing, clarity is the key. Being able to hear the whole frequency spectrum and being able to hear all of the elements of your mix in balance so that you can make corrections, so that you can make all of those elements fit together like a jigsaw puzzle really nicely, and you can hear every element of the mix. But you want to check how that mix then sounds on a pair of shite speakers that have pretty much no bass. So if they have no bass, how are you going to make sure that you get a little bit of bass response coming through those? There are mixing tricks that you can do to do that. And one of those is to, on your bass part, your bass channel, on the EQ, give a little boost up at around about between 2 and 5k, a little bit of a boost of maybe 2 or 3 dB. And if you do that, you're going to bring out the finger plucks on the strings or the plectrum on the strings. And the cool thing about that is there is enough there in shite speakers that have not very much bass response, even if they only have, bass response from about 200 hertz and above. There's enough bass response there that you can hear kind of like the mid-range plus those finger plucking frequencies, and the ear can be beautifully deceived into hearing low end that does not exist. So that's why you want to check your mixes on a pair of shite speakers, so that you can make sure that you can hear every element on those really crappy, mid-rangey, horrible honking speakers. That's why studios had Yamaha NS10s, because they were horrible. It wasn't because they were great speakers, it was because they were horrible speakers, and you wanted to check what the mix was going to sound like in a car without going out to the car, because back then you couldn't directly do what we do now with digital, where you just upload it to an MP3 and then you play it in your car from the MP3 player in the car. You couldn't do that back then in the 80s and 90s. That was impossible, but you needed to know what it sounded like in the car. So that's why shite speakers exist. And that's what the NS10s were. They were shite speakers, and that's why pretty much every studio had a set of them. And you just bought them. You didn't think about it. If you're going to have a studio, if you're going to have a console, you got a pair of Yamaha NS10s because they were awful speakers. And you needed to know what they sounded like. I mean, they were so bad that quite often you'd get engineers who would tape toilet paper with gaffer tape. They would tape toilet paper over the speakers because they were that garish on the ears. You needed something to kind of stop them being quite so horrible. But yes, that's the Yamaha NS10s, and that's why they were so popular. They were pretty much the leading studio monitor speaker for decades. Not because they were good, but because they were awful. And Yamaha knew this. They weren't stupid. They knew this. Let's see what we got here. Neil Thompson says Presonus headquarters is 100 times more likely to be hit by a tornado than where you are. That is correct. But that said, Neil, 2 summers ago there was a tornado that touched down that was on the ground about half a mile from where I am here, and it was tracking in this direction. Fortunately, it was only on the ground for a couple of minutes, and it wasn't moving very, very, very quickly. So it didn't even get here. It dissipated after a couple of minutes, but it did destroy some farm buildings, some barns and things like that. But it didn't actually get to this residential area, which everybody was concerned that this tornado was going to come this way and start getting into housing and start destroying houses. But it didn't, thankfully. But yes, we don't get very many tornadoes here. We get maybe 40 to 50 tornadoes per year, but they're not very big. They don't really do a whole lot of damage. So compared to the ones that you would get out in kind of Louisiana, Texas, and all of that area. Let's see, what else do we have? Secret Squirrel says, hopefully you and your folks stay safe out there. Yeah, it's pretty hairy, that's for sure. Chris says, I've gotten into the habit of sending a pair of phones with my CDs. That potentially could be an expensive habit, especially if you're sending a good pair of phones with a CD. But I like that. Zero Squirrel says, after a great video the other day from Nathan James Larson regarding vertical space, I'm wondering if Studio One has any spatial strategy focus arrangement tools. Wow, that is a large quadruple barreled word there. Well, we do have Dolby Atmos built into Studio One 6.5 Professional. So if you have Studio One 6.5 Professional, you have access to surround sound and also Dolby Atmos as well. So yes, we do have spatial tools now for mixing. And there is a binaural renderer, so you don't have to have all of the speaker array like you would do for Atmos. If you don't have that available, there is the binaural renderer, which means you can use headphones, which is what I do. If I'm mixing in Atmos, which I have done a few mixes in Atmos now, I use these and I use the binaural renderer, and it simulates the full Dolby Atmos array on a pair of stereo headphones. Works pretty good, actually. Works better than I thought it would, to be honest. But it does. It works very well. Trying to get those to sit on there. There we go. So yes, we do have spatial tools now in Studio One. Well worth checking out. John Hawk says, I have some Logitech speakers as well. Yes, Logitech speakers are terribly awful, and I hope that they become the NS10 replacement for the 21st century, to be honest. Peter Brooks says, I have 3 sets of speakers with a switch selector. I have the Presonus monitor station that has that exact same thing. It has a selector for different speaker sets. So at the moment, I've only got the Eris Pro 6s. I did have the Eris 5s, which not the new Eris Studio 5s, the Eris E5s, which my dad now has. He came and picked them up just last weekend. So he has those now. But yes, I do have the ability to switch between speakers if I've got them all connected up to my interface outputs, and I have those connected to the monitor station. it is dead easy to switch between speakers. Just like it is dead easy for me to switch between headphones as well. Bobby Booth says, when I first started mixing, I was using regular bookshelf speakers. Then I moved to the PreSonus HD9 headphones, and now I mix on Eris E4.5s. Yeah, the Eris E4.5s are actually pretty good. The only thing they don't have a lot of is a lot of bass response. The 5s have a better bass response than the 4.5s, being that little bit bigger. And they have slightly more powerful bass drivers in them. But the 4.5s are pretty good. Depends on the size of your room. If you've got a really, really small box room, you don't want big speakers. There are folks out there that make this mistake. They have like 8 or 10 inch speakers and a sub in a tiny little 6x9 box room. And it's just like, and then they're wondering why their mixes have no bass. The reason why your mixes have no bass is because your room is completely overwhelmed by bass. And so you're compensating for that in your mixes, and you're dialing out all of the low end. And so when you listen to your mixes, there's no bass because you're pulling it out because there's so much of it in your room. So small speakers like the 4.5s or even the 3.5s or even the new Eris Pro 4s, which have the same coaxial design as the ones I have, which are the Pro 6s, they are going to be good for a small room. These are okay for this size. I would not want to go any bigger than 6 for this room, because this room is it's 11 and a half foot that way, and it's 8 feet wide. So it's not huge. It's 11 by 8. It's not massive. The previous room I was in was 12 by 10. So these would have been perfect in that 12 by 10 space. They're good in this space, providing I don't pump out a whole lot of volume. But they're good. Let's see. Keith, Radio Talk from says they were professional proper shite. Yes, the NS10s were professional proper shite. Definitely. Happy Harry Net, Harry James Seath, I think is here. I think that's your name, but welcome, because I think you are brand new to my show, and I'm glad you're here. And he says, to weather channel, it can be useful to test your mix down on known crappy speakers. Definitely. Absolutely. I have a quality control rig that I've had for many, many years now, which is shite speakers, shite earbuds, knockoff, not real AirPods. You know, the ones that they are designed to look like the AirPods, but they're not. They are a cheap knockoff. You can pick them up for like £5 or $5, and they're shite. They really are shite earbuds. And you stick them in your ears, and if the mix sounds okay on those, then you're gonna sound good on anything. They're gonna sound good in the car. They're gonna sound good on a cell phone. They're gonna sound good anywhere, to be honest. So that's my quality control rig. But I also do listen on. I check them on a set of Galaxy earbuds as well, which are the Galaxy equivalent of the Apple AirPods. I don't have Apple. I mean, I have an iPad. I have a couple of iPads, actually. But I don't do anything professional with them. I use them for my PreSonus work, but I don't use them for anything else, really. I don't use them for personal things. So, yeah. But I have lots of Samsung Galaxy stuff. And that includes the earbuds that they have. So yes, I check my mixes on those, and as well as my knockoff ones as well. And if they sound great on the Galaxy earbuds, and if they sound great on the knockoff earbuds, I'm happy. I know my mix is good, and I can send it off, and everybody is happy. But that is a great point to make. And yes, you are a first timer. Welcome. Glad you're here, Harry. I don't know where you're from, so maybe you could state in the chat where you're from. That'd be cool. I would appreciate that, because it'd be nice to see where you're from. Let's see. You've got the Studio Live 24 Series 3. Cool. I wanted one of those, but I couldn't get one. I originally got the Series 316 before that was launched. I wanted to get the 24, but I didn't have a big enough desk, so I had to get the 16. So I have the 16 and I have the 32SC as well. So I got two Studio Live consoles. The Studio Live 16, the blue one, that goes out on gigs, and it also gets used in my church as well from time to time. But this one stays here in my studio. Super Squirrel says, sorry for my lack of clarity. Referring to vertical space. Was on placing instruments with enough tonal space to allow clarity, not surround. Oh, right. Okay. I think I understand where you're coming from. And Harry is in Woodburn, Oregon. I love Oregon. Oregon is one of my favorite states. It is so picturesque and so beautiful, and the terrain is awesome. I love Oregon. I have been to Oregon several times, and I love it. It's such a beautiful part of the United States. If I could afford to, I would quite want to live in Oregon, I have to say. But welcome. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for subscribing. I hope you like all of my other content that I've got on here. I do 2 shows every week. I do Sunday Night Live, which is more Studio One orientated. And then on a Wednesday, I have Songwriting Simplified, which is more to do with songwriting, composing, arranging, and music theory. That's the kind of stuff that we cover there. So if you've got questions to do with any of those, Harry, then by all means, come and check out the Wednesday show. It is at exactly the same time. It is 6 p.m. Central, which is midnight for me. See, I love my audience so much, I stay up until midnight for you guys. Plus, I've got a bunch of videos on the channel that are standalone videos. I've got some video series on Studio One from version 3 all the way through to the current version 6.5. So please do check those out, and I've got a whole slew of videos coming for this year, which is going to be awesome. I'm so excited about the videos I've got coming, amongst which are some videos on Notion. Yes, I'm going to be delving into Notion Mobile, which was released, I think, nearly 2 years ago now, and we are on 3.2.4 for Notion Mobile, and so I'm going to show you a little bit of what you can do with notation in Notion Mobile on PC, but you can also have it on a Mac. You can also have it on an iPad, an iPhone, an Android phone. I have Notion Mobile on this guy. This is my Galaxy phone, and it's great. I have a stylus with it, so I can do handwriting on my phone, and I can do handwriting on my iPad. And then when I come home to the studio, because of being a member of Studio One Plus, there is a feature called Transmit in Notion, and you can transmit to Notion on any of your network computers or devices. It's really, really cool. So I'm going to do some videos on that because I think I should. And I don't know how many of my audience are into notation, but I know that there are some that are. And Harry says, I like Notion iPad. Yes, it's awesome. But yes, you can use it on PC and Mac as well. You just download it from the App Store. So on Mac, it would be the Mac App Store. On PC, it would be the Microsoft Store. On Samsung Galaxy phones like these, you can get it from the Galaxy Store, or you can get it from Google Play. Either of those works just fine. You can also get it on Amazon devices as well, like the Fire, and I think it's only the 10 I think it's available on. But yes, so bunch of devices that Notion Mobile is available on, and it's very, very cool. And Harry is a member of Studio One Plus as well. Awesome. Well, then you have the entire feature bundle unlocked for Notion Mobile, which gives you the transmit feature, so you can transmit a score from Notion Mobile to Notion 6 or Notion Mobile on your computer, or you can send it to Studio One. So that's another cool thing. You know, if you've been doing your work on your iPad and you're really happy with your work on the iPad and you want to get it into Studio One for mixing, you can send the thing to Studio One and you can start mixing and mastering and upload to SoundCloud or upload to Studio One Plus or wherever you want to upload it to. So it's very, very cool. All right, we are at the end of our hour and the power stayed on, which is freaking awesome. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming out tonight, especially with kind of what's going on. You can probably hear the storm coming across the mic. It's pretty wild, actually. So we have 20 people here just now, and we have 22. We peaked at 22, which is pretty cool. But we've only got 18 likes. So those two of you that have not liked yet, please do. So that we finish tonight with 20 people watching, 20 likes. That would be awesome. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Thank you to my new subscribers. Thank you, Harry, for joining for the first time. I hope that you will be happy to come back again on the Sunday show. Please check out the Wednesday show as well. Please check out all the other videos as well that are on the channel. Have fun exploring my channel. And there's going to be a whole bunch more videos coming this year. It's going to be awesome. Thank you, everybody. I will see you on Wednesday for Songwriting Simplified, where we will finish up our little 3-week look at harmony, and then we'll start getting into melody and melody writing and tips and tricks for melody writing. I'm going to have to go because I can hear the storm is ramping up outside and I can hardly hear myself. So until then, folks, I wish you all a very good night. Good night.
Bye.